I'm here with our favorite person. Let's talk more.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
I meant Mike behind the camera, but fine, you can take the credit. Let's talk more about inflation in America with Chief Data Analyst Harry Enten. All right, and consumer inflation did improve in June, but did Trump's numbers among Americans improve along with it?
No, not really. I mean, look, the inflation numbers may be coming down from very high levels, but the American people aren't moving along with those levels. You could just see it right here. I mean, take a look at the trend here. Trump's net inflation on inflation, look at this. In January of 2025, he was at minus 6 points. Then he hit rock bottom in May of 2026, according to the Ipsos poll, he's at minus 50 points. Did he improve? Yeah. Maybe a tiny bit at minus 47 points. But the bottom line is the long-term trend for Donald Trump's net approval rating on inflation is down. These are numbers that wreck presidencies. These are numbers that Republicans do not want to see going into a midterm election. Even if this slightly lower number holds, you can bet that Republicans would be in for a whole heck of a lot of pain come November.
All right, I love it when you take us back in history and give us comparisons. So compare these numbers with other presidents.
Yeah, okay, so you see this minus 47, right? How does that sort of put its place in history? It's historically bad at this point in a presidency. I mean, just take a look here. Net approval rating on inflation about this time in a presidency. Jimmy Carter, of course, inflation ruined his presidency. He was down there at minus 44 points. How about Joe Biden? According to the Ipsos poll in June of 2022, look at this. He was at minus 43 points. Who takes the cake at the worst, at least according to Ipsos? Take a look there. Donald John Trump at minus 47 points. All these numbers are bad. They're all in the same neighborhood. They're sort of within the margin of error of each other. But if you're looking at these two numbers and you understand history and you understand how inflation impacts presidencies, you do not want to be, if you're Donald John Trump, in the brotherhood with Joe Biden and Jimmy Carter on inflation, because inflation ruined their presidencies. And unless this number improves, and given that the gas prices seem to be climbing higher again, it probably won't. That means, as I said, a whole heck of a lot of pain for Republicans come the midterms.
There is a fallout. The Iran war starting up again.
Yes.
That means prices go up. Then people get pissed. Sorry, for lack of a better word. I know your mother's not happy with that.
So, okay.
One last
she
thing.
Loves you.
You know, a lot of people, and I love her back, a lot of people will look at this and say, hey, look, the world has been dealing with inflation. America is dealing with the same thing. Like, what's the big deal? What are you saying? Yeah,
I mean, just take a look here. Inflation the past year, the rest of the G7 average, look at that, 2.5%. The United States CPI, even worse at 3.5%. I'll note that Joe Biden in his final year inflation, the CPI was 3%. We are still at a worse level right now than Joe Biden saw in his final year. No wonder the American people are pissed off.
All right, Harry Enten, I made you use the word. We're both going to get our hands slapped by Madam Enten, but it's fine.
If you zoom in, then you see things like auto insurance costs are way down, in part because law enforcement has picked up, there aren't so many people having their cars stolen and so on because of bringing order to the streets. We see food prices doing a great job. Tomato prices down 10%. Across the board, drug prices, the biggest decline in drug prices ever, all the way back to World War II because of President Trump's policies.
Okay, so what is the full story? Dave Goldman is there. You see him with the tomato, which I will tell you, little behind-the-scenes information for our viewers. Dave Goldman just drew that tomato during the break, and that is very impressive. Not only can you draw, you can explain the economy to us.
That's right. Take that, Harry Enten. Let's see you do that. There's a debate in the newsroom if it's an apple or a tomato, but we'll go with it. I mean, I think that what Kevin Hassett just said is really interesting, though, Dana, because he said if you zoom in, right? But that's not how people experience the economy. They experience it in its totality. And he is right. Tomato prices fell 10% in the past month. But over the past year, they're up almost 20%, right? And so prices are rising overall, and that's why these things are really expensive. He also talked about insurance. Well, yeah, over the past year, car insurance is down 4%, but it was up 46% over the course of 22 to 24. So, it depends on how you look at it. And that, I think, is really important when we're looking at the headline number, because we gained 3.5% over the past year. It was the biggest monthly decline since the pandemic It was actually the only monthly decline that we've had since the pandemic. But if you pull out just a little bit, what happened? It was almost all energy prices, right? Energy prices, we know, tumbled last month because gas and oil prices fell as the Strait of Hormuz opened up again. But what's going on with oil prices today? They're up another 2%. And because of everything that's been going on in the Strait of Hormuz and Iran, we are now back up to $84, almost $85. Remember, we were at $71 a barrel not so long ago, just at the beginning of the month. So certainly a huge increase in oil. Actually, oil is up 21% this month alone. Gas futures are up 12%, and that could mean that we'll have higher prices at the pump. So all of this is really, really important context as we're talking about prices, Dana.
Such important context. I didn't realize that the car insurance, obviously I knew it was expensive, but that it had gone up that much.
A lot.
But things going down is always a good thing, going in the right direction. So
we'll take it.
We'll continue to monitor it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're joined now by Justin. Justin, it has been so long. I'm so happy, always happy to have you on the show. It's been a while. Justin Wolfers is Professor of Public Policy and Economics at the University of Michigan. So just in terms, just to follow on from what David was saying there, I mean, you have a situation whereby both the US and Iran are vying for control over the Strait of Hormuz. You have commercial shipping vessels having to really assess the damage and the sort of dangers, rather, of traveling through the strait. A lot of people are going to think it's not worth it. We don't necessarily know if the US can actually have any control over the Strait of Hormuz or charge these tolls or keep ships safe. I mean, all of that is up in the air at this point. In the meantime, where do you see oil prices headed, Justin?
Well, really the question is, how long does the strait stay closed for? And is it closed? Like, you wake up one day, it's open. You wake up the next day, it's closed, open, closed. It's sort of like my dog likes to come into my house and out of my house, so I'm always opening and closing the door. That feels like the Strait of Hormuz right now. He's a good dog. The real problem, though, this is serious, Zane. The real problem is if people can't be sure that the door's going to remain open, they're not going to be willing to send ships up. And so the longer that we get these supply disruptions, the more we're going to see oil start to shoot back up towards $100 again. So, look, a couple of things are true at the same time. Oil's not as high as it was, so things got better. But when I say things got better, oil is definitely a lot higher than it would have been if we hadn't have gone to war with Iran. And if things continue to worsen, if there's more escalation, you can expect oil prices to go back up again.
But we're still a lot lower than the highs we really saw, over $100 a barrel, right when the war started. Explain that to us.
Well, I think the fear there was far greater. So actually, there's several issues there going on. One, there's a timing issue, which is if you need oil today, the oil has to have left the Middle East several weeks ago. And so just if there's not much oil right now, there's not much going on. So what I tend to do instead is look at futures prices, which smooth through that. And they still do show exactly what you just said, Zane, which is oil markets feel better about where things are now than when they were at the worst of the worst. Now, right there's the answer for you. When things were even more dramatic, when it looked like we might take out some of the local oil capacity, whether it was shipping or extraction, when it was on the table that you might get further damage through the region and so on, then of course markets gasp. They're like, oh my goodness, could this get much worse? Many of those worst case scenarios still remain a possibility. They've just become something less of a probability.
When it comes to China, I mean, China does have a lot of power over the oil. I mean, I think through this story, we've learned so much about how much oil, just in terms of the stockpile of oil that China is really sitting on. They are the world's largest importer of oil. They have also a lot of oil saved up. They can affect oil prices depending on how much they choose to buy right now, Justin.
Yes. And so far, actually, China's played something of a constructive role, choosing to pull back on their purchases of oil, which has meant there's more for the rest of us to go around. That was a moment of kindness, and you can't expect these moments of kindness to continue forever. The reality of the world oil market is it's an unusually sensitive market, and it's for a very simple reason, which is basically people need oil. And if there's less oil to go around, then in order to get people to pull back, the price would have to go up an enormous amount for people, for instance, to stop driving to work. And so if any country were to pull back on its production of oil, the United States, or if China were to pull back on its demand, or if we've seen this with the OPEC oil shocks in the 1970s, and subsequently, if any of the Middle East countries were to pull back on how much they were willing to send into the world market, that has very, very dramatic effects.
And just in terms of the United States, I mean, this is something that we've tackled quite a bit on this show, but just if you could explain this to our international audience, the United States is the world's largest oil producer. Only about 8% or so of the oil that is imported comes from the Middle East. But the energy market across the world is so interconnected that there are dramatic effects of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz on oil prices in this country, where you and I are in the United States. Explain that dynamic to our international audience.
Yeah, it can definitely break your brain a bit if you haven't studied international economics. So let me just give you a very simple way of thinking about it, which is, let's say, Zane, that you happen to own an oil drilling company in Texas. Today, you've got the option of selling it to someone in Europe for $74. That's what the global price currently is. As a result of that, you're not going to sell it to an American for $60. In fact, you're going to demand that the American offers a price nearly as much as you could get in Europe. Now, the reason Europeans are willing to pay $74 for oil right now is there's not much oil over there, which is a long way of saying the price of oil is set in global markets. So the American price depends on what happens to global supply and global demand. The second thing that can break your brain is that America basically produces as much oil as it consumes. And so you might think, well, if the price went up, America as a whole, it makes a bunch, it uses a bunch, seems like that would come out on average. And actually, for the country as a whole, that's true. But it doesn't feel that way. And it doesn't feel that way because what happens is when the gas price is higher, it costs me more money to fill up at the tank. But the folks who hold stock in oil companies, those oil companies are now selling it for a whole lot more, and they're a whole lot more profitable. On aggregate, they offset, but at the level of the individual household, it can feel pretty painful.
Yeah, you can say that again. Justin Wolfers, live for us there. Thank you so much. Always good to see you.